Welcome to the Birdhouse podcast, where we talk about how to build a business, how to become a better version of ourselves, while we strive to fly up to the higher skies. My name is Alexander Guller, the CEO of the Birdhouse Agency, and I'm your host for this podcast. Welcome to the Birdhouse. Welcome to the Birdhouse podcast. My name is Alexander Guller, and today with me I have Stephen Wynn. So, Stephen, what is today's topic?
Today's topic is a small business good for you or not? Just looking at businesses in general, if it's a good opportunity, because not all businesses are good opportunities for you.
Yeah, and we both talk about investing and if you should find a job there. And of course, just a disclaimer, any of the things we say, we are not financial advisors. So don't hold us up against anything. This is only our thoughts.
Yep.
So,
So I got a question for you. Like, with the positions you're in, do you think you're a number one person or you're number two person? Like, if you were in a big company, like, what number on the chain are you? Good number 5 person? So like you have like the CEO, the board, a couple managers, then yourself, and then maybe people underneath you. What position do you think that you're good at?
I'm thinking I'm a 1 or a 2. I'm a person that leads and takes decisions and so on, and takes responsibility. So I think I'm up at the top. So that's definitely one of the things that I have been looking for whenever I work. Is it something that I can like advance in, and is it something that I can learn something new from, and is it a person where a business where I can actually improve my position and also like make it better if I take more responsibility and so on.
And when you are in your jobs, what are certain things that, like, in general topics, like, that you are giving to them? You can say, like, at least for me, what I found is I bring skill, I bring like wisdom and knowledge of where to go. And usually I bring some kind of like addition to like either efficiency or product to that.
Well, I think for me it's more about I'm quite a visionary. Like I'm more about thinking where I want to go and trying to keep everything with me on that direction and road. It's not always as much about the product, but I'm more thinking in terms of the image and where do we want to go and how do we get there the fastest. And I would actually delegate most of the tasks and so on. But actually, what number would you say you are yourself?
I of course think like I'm a 1 or 2 as well. But there are also different situations where I might be a 6 or a 7 in a company while I'm doing a certain job. If I have to be a technician, I'm really low on the board because a technician needs the management above them and then needs the visionary, the strategist, so on and so forth above that. But most of the time, I think I'm within that visionary strategist position. Because this covered in the E-Myth book. I want to just give credit where this credit's due, because a lot of people don't give credit to ideas that other people brought them. But like when you're growing a business, you have you have 3 things: the visionary, the like strategy to get there, and then you have the technician part. And a lot of business owners are technicians. And so the like so I used to be part of a startup where the owner was a technician and a big idea guy. He was not a strategist. And it was very evident in that, and he did not listen to that. So like there's only like 2 things in his mind of let's move product and let's make this as big as possible. But he did not know how to do that. He did not listen to like, okay, we need to do this process, we need to do inventory, we need to do different things like that, where he just wanted to put things on sale, move stuff, and eventually he he was just losing a lot of money, and I eventually had to take that opportunity and say, hey, this is no longer an opportunity for me. This is going to be a crash and burn here in the next year or two, and I do not want to waste my time here.
Mm.
um, and like the team I'm going now, a lot of people, we had to downsize. And it's a greater opportunity for me because I get a larger area that I can claim to go get sales. I have, like, I'll get more technicians because some of our managers had to step down. And that's because they did not have enough income or low expense cushion to bring them through the holidays, the first wave of sickness, second wave of sickness, weather, decision makers being out, things like that. They weren't ready for that. Um, and so, and things that I've learned is like, yes, I am a good tactician or technician, but I am much better at the managed strategy, big idea part of the business. And so, like for me, I want to do well at being a technician that I can have people under me and then grow my team from there and show, because you have to show people first what to do. And then after 4 or 5 people, it's kind of like a snowball, and you can basically stop doing the work yourself and help out where needed.
Mm.
And so for me, it's like, okay, is this an opportunity in the rebuilding of this team, or is this gonna roll and run out of steam or run out of snow or whatever you want to say?
Yeah. Well, okay, cool. I suppose the first example I think about whenever you talk about the visionary, the strategist, and the technician is Apple with Steve Jobs, where I think
Mhm.
definitely one of the examples that you can use that on is definitely Steve Jobs was a visionary and a strategist, whereas Steve Wozniak was more like the technician guy. He used the technology where Steve Jobs was the selling and image and strategist and visionary and so on. And
One of my favorite things he did was the first iPhone. Like, instead of being the tactician and looking at it and seeing like, okay, this is a great product and all of this, the first thing he did was throw it in a fish tank.
okay,
And if do you want to know why?
no, well, yeah, I want to know.
No, you don't. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so he threw that in the fish tank to see if it was, one, if there was any level of waterproof, and two, if there were like bubbles coming out of it, if the space was used effectively.
Mm,
And so, and like, so if it could withstand that. So, and the second thing he did was he took it apart and seeing if it was good on the inside as it was the outside. Hence
mm.
why like Apple has the image today of like, oh, they have beautiful products and this kind of thing. It was because Steve Jobs said, hey, we need it just as good looking for the technicians as we do the people. And then he had the technicians go back and improve it.
Oh, cool. I also think like Steve Jobs was also a guy that had a high standard, but
Mhm.
that's what you need if you want to like change the world and so on. But I think like I have an Android myself, a Samsung, but
Mhm.
one of my best friends, which I train with, is he uses an iPhone, and whenever we like compare phones, I also just think that iPhone is way more well rounded, like. It has everything. It has a good facial ID identification and so on, and it's just so user friendly. Whereas I think the Samsung has a lot of like cool features, but none of the cool features that you use in the actual everyday life and so on.
Yeah.
So I think like
So yeah, I'm
for
going to bring
more.
this up because I have both iPhone and Android.
Mm,
And I can say why here in a second, but continue going with your
yeah.
story.
And I just think like the iPhone for me it just seems like it's so much more well-rounded and thought of for the everyday use, and
Mhm.
way faster, and also like if you have a Panzer glass that you put on it, the Panzer glass box that you get has a like a built-in plastic device which so you can put it on the iPhone perfectly each time. Whereas on every pencil glass I put on a smartphone, a Samsung is like you have to put it on by yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah, and
Yeah. So so my reason why I have an Android, which this is a OnePlus, and then I also have an iPhone. Right now, my iPhone is my primary use device, even though I like Androids better. Um, and the reason why is I've grown appreciation to iPhones because they're very good for the end user.
yeah,
They're very good for everyday use. They're very good for like even if I'm trying to teach my grandma how to use it, it's simple enough that she can use it.
yeah,
Um, and because most people, as much as we are in a technology age, they do not know how to use technology. Like they can go look something up, they can send a message, they can connect to the Wi-Fi, and they can make a call. And anything beyond that, it's hit or miss if people know how to do it.
yeah. It
Some
really
people
is.
don't know how to, some people don't know how to connect Bluetooth, and that are our age, and I'm like, how? Um, or they're like, hey, how do I change the size of the text on my phone? Or just different things like that. And that's where like the iPhone comes in. It's super simple. Um, but the thing that's wrong with the iPhone is it's awful for tacticians.
Yeah.
Like I've done plenty of repairs on iPhones. I've done repairs on Apple computers, iPads, all that kind of thing. And unless it's a very simple end user thing where it's more end user knowledge, it's much harder to fix it. It's they try to make everything proprietary, so you have to go to the store, you have to use their authorized technicians, you have to buy their different little bit because they have a three-prong bit, which is not a standard three or five. It's usually there's the Phillips, which is the four or the six-star one. Those are standard, and the other two are not, and those are the two that they use, which I
Okay.
think is just dumb personally. And they had a thing where like there's a huge like lawsuit over like, okay, can people actually fix their phones and are they still under warranty when they try to fix their phones? And so, but with like Android, it's way better for the tactician. If
Mm.
you want to know, like, you want to customize your phone, you want to have higher security, you want to like just be able to get custom apps, all of that. That's where you go. The Android, the Google Pixel, the OnePlus, the whatever Samsung, whatever route you want to go, that's when you go that way is if you're okay with a little bit of finicky for something that you can customize how you want it. Because the Apple, there's other than the way that the screen looks, you can't customize much beyond that.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so like that's why like I explain to people it's like I'm not against Apple and iPhone. I'm against it for me
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I'm
For you
I'm
as
a
a technician.
Yeah, because I'm like with granted, I'd much rather be on a Linux computer than a Windows computer. And that's because a Linux has a lot more, again, tactician, but they're most of the applications I use run better on Windows, which is why I have a Windows machine.
Mm.
And so I had to give up the security and customizability of Linux because stuff just ran better and I did not. Because sometimes I just need to hop on a computer and get something done. I don't want to go through like bug fixing um, every single time. But like on the same end, most of the applications that I use don't run on a Mac computer. Um, and so it's kind of like a give take where it's like, okay, how do I decide which one to do? And for me, Windows is the best solution for that. And same with the iPhone right now. iPhone, because I'm just making my primary things I'm doing on my phone is looking things up on the internet, texts, and calls. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm primarily doing on my phone right now and inputting stuff into an app. And that's and that's great and fine. And that's why I have an iPhone, is because it's better, also better connects with a lot of people that I'm around because they have iPhones. I can
Mm.
FaceTime them. The messaging's better, and that's also because Apple uses an old protocol for between an Android and iPhone, which only iPhones use anymore.
Oh,
Which is why that's why it sucks, is because it literally is the literally an early 2000s, late 90s way of communicating.
oh,
And then the way that they use iMessage is a very new, faster, better way to communicate. Um, which that's a whole nother conversation. But like, I don't know. That's just like, okay, how do you go through that process of picking that? Why do you have a Android?
yeah. Well, I think for me it just kind of started when I got an Android as a gift from my parents, and then it just like grew on me, and now just have an Android. But I'm thinking the next phone I get, the personal use is going to be an iPhone. Um, because I think, as you said, it's way more end user friendly. But also, I really like the point that you talked about with the technician and the end user. Because as far as I know, I also know that the technician part is quite more easy on an Android, a Samsung, a Huawei, and so on than it is on an iPhone. And also I have a friend who's in app development, where he also talks about the same where if you had to develop an app as in for iPhone, it just takes so much more time and a longer
Pain in
protocol.
the
And
butt.
sorry,
It's a pain in the butt.
yeah, literally, and that's one of the ways that he describes it. I don't think with the same words, but you get it. And whereas of Android, it was just way easier.
Mm,
So, but I also think when you have to think about businesses, products, and so on, if you want to invest in or if you want to buy a product, you also have to like watch out for what the vision is and are, and what are they hoping to accomplish? What are the what is the person that they are trying to hit? And actually, if you like look back in time, one of the earlier uh, ads that Apple did was where they filmed one person who was kind of revolutionary. He was like kind of independent and not an everyday person, and and so on. It kind of had a cool brand, whereas Windows and Apple, of course, always have had a battle on this, where Windows actually showed it it's used by everyone. So instead of they focused on one single personality, Windows focused on every person, the businessman, the everyday man who lives at home and so on. So it also has to be a big part of the brand.
yeah. It's either do you connect with the person or do you connect with the product?
Yeah,
And that was the two different things of
yeah,
how Windows became big, is it got in front of a large audience and it
yeah,
became familiar.
yeah,
And how Apple became a brand is saying, hey, it's for the everyday person.
yeah. It's something like that at least. Yeah. And Windows was like, I think most of all computers is Windows. I
It's
think that.
about a good 70%, I think, right now is what the
Okay,
ratio is.
yeah. I don't know how much about Linux. How much?
Linux is a very small
Yeah,
percentage because it's so technical.
yeah. Okay, so it's only the really technician type person
Hmm.
who does it. So Windows was for everybody, whereas Apple was for one specific personality, and now I just think that Apple is growing on everyone. It's just
Yeah.
more end user friendly, and so
Mhm.
that that specific person that they started to brand to is not as specific. It's not only those; it's kind of expanding outwards, and I think a
Yeah.
lot of people actually want to choose iPhones over over Androids and so on.
It's because there's a community and brand around it.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and just one more point before we. Sorry, this is my very much IT technician brain. The
sure.
reason why Windows is so popular is because most of the repeat computers are in a workspace. Not everyone has more than one laptop or more a desktop. Like that's not a necessary common thing in everyone's house where you have two desktops or a laptop and that kind of thing. Granted, I have that, but that's just because I'm a nerd and I have different use cases for different things. But like my girlfriend, it's her family all just has a laptop, and that's great for them. And a couple of them have Apple, and a couple of them have Windows, but that's just because their family is divided in the house on Apple. Um, but like in the workspace, you have a computer at every single desk if it's occupied or not. You have to have backup computers. You have to have computers on the run. You might have a computer that literally works with one machine only.
Mm.
And most of those are window based because it's an easier tactician. Like it's a good for the end user and it's good for the technician. It's that happy middle ground,
Okay, yeah.
which is where he came in. And that's like, I guess looping it back for business, it's like where is that middle ground where like when you're looking at the opportunities in the company where it is friendly for you to be there and like uses your skills. Um, and at some point, like that might diverge. It might be this like great fit for a while, and then there might be something that happens. There might be financial issues. There might be something that comes up in your family where you have to move, and eventually it's not a right fit for you.
Yeah,
But that can also start like this and become a great fit for you because of community. There's so many factors in that.
but also
Um,
about when you grow older, you get more in touch of what you want and what you like and what you don't like and so on. So it's also gets way easier for you to choose an actually identity, the brand of, and also like the identity a certain brand projects and so on.
and it's easier to just even with time because you're making less new memories in your mind. It's easier to stay at something longer because you're not constantly stimulated in the next thing to do as you are a kid. Everything's the first when you're a kid. But
Yeah.
when you're an adult, there isn't as many firsts. Like, yeah, you're still making memories at a great rate, but it's slowed down since you were a kid. So you're okay with staying at a job for 5 years instead of leaving every year because you're not stimulated enough.
Mm.
And it's the perception of that.
Yeah, yeah. I also think about that with staying in the job and so on. I also think it's you also have a different perspective on time,
Mhm.
and also because there's not very much biological changes that's going on, you don't also change that much. So like the 20 year old me and the 25-year-old me are probably about similar in well, so hopefully I evolved and so on.
Yeah.
But
But
whereas
your brain's going to finish develop around
yeah,
25, which is why that's a key age for a lot of people.
yeah, 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 and especially boys mature later than girls. I think it's about 2 years average
Mhm.
later than girls. But and also like the 30-year old me and the 35-year old me are going to be way more similar than the 10-year old and 15-year old me are similar, and so on.
Mhm.
So yeah, I just think that was an important point to get in on that as well. Um,
Absolutely.
so whenever I want to get kind of back into the topic, so with so whenever you look at a product or business and so on, you definitely want to look at the vision of the company. What are they trying to achieve? Are they just trying to make a quick or are they trying to change the world and so on?
Or are they taking advantage of your labor and your time?
Yeah, also that.
Because I've seen that so much where it's like they're not willing to pay you the skills because they're not willing to budget for that because it takes a little bit away from profit, so on and so forth.
Yeah. So yeah, and I think that's definitely more about when you work with small businesses and so on. The thing about small being small is like often you can be a little more maneuverable because you're only five people that you have to like ask and so on. There's only five people you have to talk to change a small business and so on. Whereas in large company like Disney or Lego or something like that, which has more than thousands employers, not employers but employees, and there's a lot of if you want to make a change, it takes a lot of time because there's so many hits it wants to get through. It has to get through if you want to get a change. So I think that's. But one of the advantages of being big is you also have more of a budget. Like you have bigger
You have
money to
more money
spend.
to more room to mess up, more
Yeah,
margin.
yeah. And also you are also more stabilized in the sense that whenever you are so big, you kind of know that you are earning a certain amount of money. Whereas if you're in a small business, it's kind of hard to maintain the same profit each month and so on.
Yeah. Um, Here's an example of, so I had a mentor back in Manhattan when I lived. He is a CEO of a company, and they had somebody come in and give basically give personality tests to see if the chief officers were all in the right place. So the CFO should be the CFO, the CMO should be the CMO, so on and so forth. And there's one person on the like the C team or the chief officer team, whatever you want to call it, that no one knew where to put. Like he was meant to be there, but like no one knew what position he could take because he could be in the CIO, the CMO, CMFO, like he could be in a lot of different positions.
Mm,
Um, and so somebody came in and did personality tests, and they were like, "We agree with everything you're doing, but we don't know where to put this guy either."
yeah,
And like that's an okay place to be as well. You can be a jack of all trades within a business,
yeah.
but at the same time, like, is there a better fit business wise for that person?
Hmm.
Like, is there a place where he will be a great CEO or he will be a great CIO or whatever it is? And like with that, it's like, okay, where's that opportunity for him to become in that? Or is he just going to be just a standard chief officer, a CO, instead of a certain job within that?
Yeah,
And so, like, it's like, okay, where do they adapt and put that person? Because at some days he's needed in one area and some days he's needed in another. And for him, that's also a huge opportunity that he gets to be like, he is very valuable to that business because he is so flexible.
yeah. And also, whenever you have a person like that that can fit quite many of the criteria, I think it's also quite important what the person wants themselves. Uh,
Mhm.
Also, like a lot of entrepreneurs nowadays, they all think about starting their own business and so on. But actually, whenever they like expand and try everything out, they some realize that they are okay being just the CEO of somebody else's business, like
Yeah,
still calling the shots, but not being the owner of it.
they're not good with responsibility. And
Yeah,
sometimes they're good being a tactician, but not a manager.
yeah. Yeah, and I think I think Jason Cavill mentions this in one of his lectures or something. One of his old mentors, I think it was Dan Kennedy, didn't like to have many people under him, so he just kept his business quite small.
Mhm.
Even though he was a great, I think it was a copywriter.
Yeah,
Don't hold me up on that, but I think it
I
was a
believe
copywriter.
so.
Yeah, like he was a great copywriter, but he didn't want to get too big. So he just when he got to that size, it was fine by him. And okay, let's just keep on going like this. And I think that's also like when is enough enough. That's also one of the things that you have to understand about yourself. When is uh, have you heard the old story with the man and the lady walking on the beach?
No, not that I can think of.
Okay, I think it's just such a good story. So, okay, so there's a couple, a man and a boy, a man and a girl walking down the beach, and suddenly the girl sees a big yacht with a person on top of the yacht floating away, right beside her. And the girl asks her man, "Hey, when are we going to have a yacht?" And I don't need it. I have something that he don't. What is that? I have enough in what I have. It's not always about finding the next big thing. It's also about realizing when you have enough.
And that's where that if you're American, like that $60,000 a year like cap, where it's like there's not much more happiness that you get above $60,000. Like, yeah, if you have more kids, you need more money, so on and so forth. But like the standard person, like after you reach that amount, it's like your bills are paid, and your happiness is like reach on like where your money comes from, because you're not struggling for it. You can go, like, if you need to go out to dinner, you can go out to dinner. Like, you're not like stressed about money.
Yeah.
And once, like, granted, now when people become more materialized and that kind of thing, there's more stress the higher budget you get.
Yeah.
But like, if a typical, like, I pull somebody off the street and gave them $60,000 a year, like, they would just be as content as if I pulled somebody off the street and gave them $300,000 a year. Like, again, I'm not saying the top 1%, the top 5%. I'm saying the general population here. Because the top like 5%, like you give them $300,000 a year, they're going to invest it and grow it. But somebody who just wants to live a comfortable life, like, they're going to be just as happy having 60,000 as they are 300,000.
Yeah, definitely. And it's kind of a tough question to ask, but I just think it comes naturally at some point. I'm still not at the point where I think I have enough, as I still want more.
Yeah,
but
everyone wants more, but
the grass is always green on the other side.
Yeah, and so for me, something I've been, I guess, struggling with the last like year is like, okay, where do I want to go, and when is a position enough for me? Is owning my business enough for me, or do I need to own another one?
Yeah.
And I've been kind of fighting this because my girlfriend is very different than me. She's okay like with just having just a normal steady income coming in. Like, she'd be fine if I was just being, say, an engineer at, I don't know, not Wells Fargo, like Spirit Airlines, say, something like that. Like, she'd be just as fine with somebody like that. But at the same time, like, or like, fine if I had the job like that. But at the same time, like, that's just not how I want to do it, and create income. And so, yeah, so it's just kind of a second. So it's just kind of a thing where it's like, okay, when I have a job, when is that enough? Is owning a business enough? Is getting $1 million a year enough? Is 5 million? Is, I don't know, continue going up there? It's like, what's enough?
Definitely. And I also think about like, yeah, whenever you talk about that, and I don't know, I think about I don't know. I think that's just a good place to stop.
Yeah. So that's a good question to end on. And sorry, I'm getting a bunch of calls right now, which is why I had to stop. But I think that's a good thing. Is like, is what you have enough, or do you need, not want, do you need more?
Yeah.
Because you're always going to want more. That's just inevitable. But like, do you need more, or are you happy with where you're at? Because you can go and look at the whole Gary Vee happiness thing if you want to go down this trail.
Yeah. And it's just important to be happy. Thanks for listening to the Birdhouse Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, follow me on my Instagram at The Birdhouse Agency and share it to your friends and family, or rate it on Apple Podcast or Anchor. My name is Alexander Gulager, and I will see you at the next episode.